Okay, now I'll start speaking English for our main speaker today, which is Michael. He has been here last year, and I'm very pleased, Michael, that you have made a trip again to come and talk to us about Lightwave Logic. I'm sure you are getting pretty bored with people asking when is the commercial contract coming in, so let's ask that as the first question after your talk. Then you can say, I can't comment on that, and then we can go to real questions. But in any case, is the presentation ready? In any case, give it up for Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to be back again and to see a lot of really excited and interesting people. I'm going to talk for the next 20-25 minutes on Lightwave Logic and our progress in the last 12 months. So let's go through the presentation. As Mark indicated, our safe harbor slide is much shorter than his, which is 2 pages. I'm not going to read this. Corporate overview, we can see some rough numbers on the right-hand side. I'm going to focus on the back end of the presentation, which gives you more of the commercial update. This slide presentation will be on our website. So if you want to get the details, you can look in at our website under the investor presentations, and you can download the slides. As you can see here, in terms of the corporate overview, I mean, we're in a large market in the internet data center environment. We have proprietary polymer technologies, organic technology. We have a very strong patent portfolio. Commercialization is underway. We had our first agreement last year, and I know everybody's asking when the second agreement is going to come, so I'll deal with that at the end of the talk. Balance sheet in our last public document says that we had $31 million on a balance sheet, so we have enough money on runway to last us well into 2025. We don't have any debts in the company, as you can see there. And we're building a world-class team and new technology platform. So what we have here is, yes, it's a polymer technology, but it's a brand new platform for the internet. And so one of the things I'm going to try and convey today is, yes, I'm really excited about the platform, but it's a new platform, and there is incumbent technologies called semiconductors, and it's our job to displace and disrupt those semiconductors. And then lastly, we have a very experienced management and board. We have Tikam here, if you just want to raise your hand. Tikam joined us about a year ago. He leads our marketing efforts. Tikam knows all the data center guys. He knows all the customers. So he's very much integrated in that process. And if we get a couple of questions on that at the end, I may ask Tikam to help me out. So let's go to the next slide. How many times have we experienced this when it says poor connection, when we're on the internet and we have the video playing and somebody can't see or hear what we're saying? So we turn it off. So we turn the video off, and then we just go back to audio. It just happens all the time. And what that basically means is the internet is not providing enough data. You know, we call it in the industry not providing enough bandwidth, but not enough data is coming through and back. And in fact, if your children are using video games and your wife is doing something and you're trying to have a business call, it becomes difficult. You need to have more bandwidth into the home. And so this type of problem is the problem we're trying to solve with our technology. Our technology is called optical modulators. We use a polymer technology, and it will actually affect this. And so all I'm saying on this slide, radical innovation is needed. That's our new technology. So when we look into the industry and the industry sees all these problems, there's drivers. And the drivers are what really makes the data centers excited about looking at a new technology. Well, there's 3 things here. We all know in this one here, the need for space. These data center buildings are so big, you know, countries are now sort of like saying, we don't really want these data centers in our country because they take up so much of our electricity grid. It is a problem. So we're seeing that sort of thing occur right now because of these things are so big. We've got to make them smaller. And a lot of the data center guys are trying to figure that out. We have to make them faster. They have to send a lot more information. Now, we've got this word here called artificial intelligence. I'm sure that most people have heard about this. But what this really means is that with artificial intelligence, we're generating a lot more information. And that information is generated on an electronic chip, typically called a graphical processor unit or a GPU. Companies like NVIDIA are really experts at making these electronic chips. And so when we utilize artificial intelligence, whether it's ChatGPT or Bard from Microsoft, we're generating a lot more data. Some of that data goes in the chip, and some of that data goes off the chip. The data that goes off the chip goes into the fiber optic network, or what we call the internet. And so the need for speed is increasing. That's a huge driver today, and that's increasing. And then the last one here, we probably are aware of this over in Europe, the need for green. We've got to get the power consumption down. And so that's what green really means. So these are the big, what I call macro trends that's going on in the marketplace today. And the technologies that you develop have to address these three trends. So let's have a look. When we drive a car and we're going to go into Brussels and we're going to go in rush hour, you know, the intersections of the motorways or the freeways, they all get clogged up. And so we have backups of cars. This is essentially what's happening in the data centers. So you've got the traffic going in and the traffic going out. It slows down because the data centers cannot handle the volume of traffic. It's just like the motorways. It's just like the freeways. It's you know, when you see this going in and out of Brussels in rush hour, you see the same thing. Our technology alleviates that problem, speeds up the traffic, and makes the data centers more efficient. So this is a slide. I probably showed this slide last year, but it's a very simple slide. And yes, it's technical, but we just focus on two things here, the red boxes and the blue boxes. The red boxes is increasing power. This is one of the problems data centers have. The power keeps going up. And it's going up at a rate that most people don't like. The blue boxes is the increase in traffic. We're seeing increase in traffic because of artificial intelligence. These two trends are not good for the data centers. They don't like these trends. But we can't stop these trends. We've got to design technology to mitigate these trends. It's what we call the Achilles heel of the industry. These are major challenges for data centers. The word we use is hyperscalers and service providers. And so whenever you talk to any data center person, whether it's the CEO or it's some engineer or it's a mid-level person, these are the problems, these are the challenges that they are dealing with today. This other slide is very interesting. Now, I don't know if many of you have been in the silicon semiconductor business or have at least watched that business over the last 50 or 60 years. Some of you may have heard of this, Moore's Law. That's when you're doubling the density of your chip every 2 years. I think the latest chip by NVIDIA, I think it's called, is it Blackwell? It's 200 billion transistors. So it's just amazing, you know, because 50 years ago we were talking about 1,000 transistors. So it's incredibly complex. They've followed in the silicon industry Moore's Law for about 50 years. And that's been very, very aggressive. I mean, that's taken chips to, you know, 200 billion transistors on a piece of silicon. If we think about this LLM, this is generative artificial intelligence, right? LLM stands for large language models, which is one way of measuring the level of computation in artificial intelligence. If we think Moore's Law has been aggressive, 2x every 2 years, look what artificial intelligence is predicting, 100x every 2 years. You don't have to be a genius to figure out this is incredible. This artificial intelligence and the need for generating more information is huge. And it's so big that it's very difficult for people to really understand that impact. And it changes everything we think about. And so, yes, we needed more information during COVID because we all worked from home and we're all doing virtual working. And so we needed more information at home with the video platforms. COVID is nothing compared to artificial intelligence. So this is a huge driver that's driving a lot more information. And what that's actually doing is that's forcing the data center guys to upgrade all their equipment, which is great for companies like us because we have the faster equipment. And so these companies are looking for new technology. Now, I indicated that the NVIDIAs do the computational electronics. We do the interconnect photonics. So we're not directly affected by artificial intelligence, we're indirectly affected. Because of it, doing more processing in the electronic GPUs, we benefit here because there's more information going down the fiber. All right, so what do? We make polymers. I mean, the polymers are very similar to the polymers you find on your television that's called organic LEDs or polymer LEDs, except our polymers don't send out light when you put a voltage across them. We actually switch light. And so we use that property to switch light going down a fiber. Now, we make these polymers in Denver, Colorado. So the few of you that may turn up in our shareholder meeting in about 4 weeks' time, we're going to take you into the facility and show you these polymers and show you how they work. We have a manufacturing chemistry facility that can scale in volume, and we doubled the size over the last 12 months since I was last here. And we have a lot of experience with this type of material and refining it, making it reliable and stable. So we've also, last year in, I think it was September, October in Scotland, an international conference, we won an award with the technology because of the performance. But as I've indicated here, they're similar in concept to the OLEDs you look at every day in your displays, just very different chemistry. They're very small, they have incredible performance that is better than the semiconductor incumbent technologies today, and we can integrate other devices with them. Typically, this is what they look like. This is actually a piece of silicon, and the polymer is the green. So it's a liquid form. We spin it onto a wafer just like you would do in any normal fab, and it's very easy to use. So where do they go? Where do these polymers go? Well, they go into these little metal boxes called transceivers. So these boxes are typically 1 centimeter wide by about 4 centimeters long. And these are the boxes that have the optics on one end, which is the yellow cables, and electronics on the other end. And these boxes plug into all the data center equipment in millions of units. Now, what do we do to these boxes? We're not changing the box. We're just changing the engine inside these boxes. So one way to think about this is if you have a 4-cylinder car and you put a V8 engine in, it's going to go a lot faster. And that's essentially what we're doing to those boxes. We're not changing the boxes, we're just upgrading the performance. We can upgrade the performance of silicon photonics. This is silicon that's used optics on a silicon wafer. We can do other upgrades as well. The takeaway is that EO polymers enable higher performance data communications, and that's really exciting. So the markets, this market slide hasn't changed too much. The markets we're focused on are above this orange line. So the fiber communications, high performance computing, compute, artificial intelligence, data center interconnect, etc. These markets over the next decade are huge opportunities. Now, below this line, there's also big opportunities, but we're just a company of about 33, 34 people. We can't do everything. So we're focusing above that line in fiber-based opportunities. Now, if we license to somebody who wants to get into projection displays or wants to get into automotive LiDAR or optical sensing, we're happy to do that. And so we want to have a business model that allows us to focus on these at the top and also allows other people to focus on these opportunities using our material. And that way we can get our material used everywhere. That's really what we want. One of the big things, we have a chemistry lab that can scale in volume, so we're very happy with that. That's in Denver, Colorado. But we don't have a silicon foundry. A silicon foundry has cost hundreds of millions of dollars, even $1 billion. In fact, if you look at ASML, their equipment costs billions of dollars that goes into the big silicon foundries. And so we can't afford that, and we don't want to raise the money for that because it doesn't make a lot of sense. And also, there's 30 or 40 companies that act as foundries where they just want to run wafers, and that's their business. And so this slide says, is our technology compatible with silicon foundries? Because if it is, it makes life a lot easier. Now, if you think about a silicon foundry and you have a silicon technology, then the compatibility is really good. So if you've got a silicon device, it's going to work nice. With our technology in green, it's a liquid that you put onto a wafer. So it works really well. These are some of the competitive technologies that make modulators. They're not silicon at all. And it's very difficult to use these types of materials in a big silicon foundry. So why, yes, there is competitive technologies out there, these guys are having problems. All these technologies are having problems. They're not silicon, they're very difficult to deal with, and they can be a contaminant for the foundry, and that's a huge issue if you're running CMOS chips. And so we have really nice compatibility with the manufacturing base of big silicon foundries, which is really good because you really need this to scale in volume. And in fact, it was just a few weeks ago we showed our first picture. This is a 200 millimeter silicon wafer with polymer modulators on it. So I don't have one with me, but they're about this big. And so that shows you thousands of modulators on a big wafer. But what does this really say? This says that we're ready to scale. We're not on small wafers, we're on commercial-sized silicon wafers, and we didn't have this last year. So this is a really big step forward because this is occurring in a commercial foundry. Now, you may ask, who is that foundry? We haven't released the name of the foundry, so we're not going to do that. But what we can say is this is normal commercial foundry work, making CMOS ICs, and they're doing our polymer modulators as well. And so this just shows you a little bit more of a close-up. You know, the light goes in here. You can see the polymer in green, and the light goes out the other side. It gets modulated. I mean, it's a very simple process. This all happens on a silicon wafer. A few words here to say that it's really high performance, it's very low power. But the exciting thing is that we're now working on commercial-grade silicon wafers. All right. Now, this is a bit of a basic slide. So what this slide is showing is, you've heard of the internet sending digital signals, right? Ones and zeros, ones and zeros. Everybody's heard of that. But this is what it's really like. You can see a 1 is when it goes up, and a 0 is when it goes down. This is your digital signal. And if you get a nice, clean digital signal with no errors, you get a big black box there, or a big eye, as we call it. That black eye area is what you look for errorless transmission through the fiber. So if you can get those big black eyes, then you've got a really good system. Now, there's another encoding. This is more of a stepwise encoding that we call PAM4. It's what the data center industry uses. It's very popular. It's slightly different. And you can see, instead of having one big eye, you now have 3 smaller eyes. But the takeaway from this slide is open eyes mean high-quality transmission and no errors. So when you design components like we design, you want to design it so you see these black spots, because that means that you get nice, clean signals from the 1 to 0, and you get error-free transmission. So this is sort of more basics. And this is a slide we showed at the Optical Fiber Conference, which is an international conference about 3-4 weeks ago. And okay, so the eyes are white and not black, but you can see the eyes are open. And the metrics for this performance was truly world-class. It is truly world-class. And it's attracted a lot of tier 1 companies because they want this performance. So why is this performance really good? Well, there's a bunch of numbers there. The 200 number is a really important number. It's what the data center guys are looking for today. The other really important number is 1 volt. Why is that important? Because that's much, much lower than the competition. That reduces the power consumption. So this is world-class performance. And we have, and Tikam can attest to, we have tons of interest in our technology because of this performance. And we showed this for the first time about 4 weeks ago. So we also worked with a university. In this case, it was ETH Zurich over in Switzerland. And they do some very nice work. And this is a very technical slide, so I'm not going to explain it, except one thing. The previous slide had that magic number of 200 at the top, 200 gigabits per second. That's what the industry wants today. What the industry wants 3-4 years down the road is 400, because they're just greedy. They want to go up in speed. They want to send more information. It's going to be a lot more artificial intelligence. And so what we demonstrated 4 weeks ago is that our polymers even work at 400. Now, this is more of a university demonstration, but it just shows you that the performance of our technology doesn't stop with the next generation. And we know it can go to 800 too. And that's the big selling point of what we have. When you've got a disruptive technology that's different than what's already out there, semiconductor is out there as an incumbent, we have a disruptive polymer technology. You want it to be disruptive enough to get people really excited and use it, but you don't want it to be too disruptive where you change the whole internet infrastructure, because that costs a lot of money. What you really want is it to be disruptive enough where you can put it as an engine in an existing box that's already out there, and then you just upgrade that box. And so the level of disruption has to be carefully managed. And we've done that with the performance of our polymers. So we've already showed customers that we can even go to the next speed if they want to. And we know they're going to go there. So the business plan is, as you probably have already guessed, he's selling these modulators and licensing our material to people that want to go into different areas and really sort of make our polymers ubiquitous. And so what are the goals? We want our polymers everywhere. You know, you've heard me say before, we want these to be ubiquitous. We want everybody to use them, just like OLEDs for OLED televisions and OLED displays and little displays on mobile phones and PDAs and things. That's what we want. And so the business model is set up to do that. We want different teams to use our stuff. We want different modulators in different types of transceiver boxes. And we want foundries to use our polymers, just like I indicated with the big silicon foundries. And so one of the things that happened last year, well, before I get to that slide, is like there's a slide here on patents. You can't license a technology unless you protect it. So there's a lot of patents here that go into the materials, the device design, the packaging. And we had our first license agreement last year because somebody looked at our patents and said, yes, you've got really good protection. We're going to have to license it from you. And so that's what we did. Now, there's going to be a number of questions, and we already heard the first question I'm going to get is, okay, so you've got one license deal. When are you going to get another license deal? What I can say to address that question is that we're already in discussions with many companies about follow-up license deals. But here's a scenario we should think about. Should I try and get, I don't know, 5 or 10 license deals that are very small, that don't have a big impact? Or should I try and get 1 or 2 license deals with tier 1 companies, multinational companies, that if they implement the technology, everybody starts using polymers? And so if you think about this for a second, if you think about your television that is OLED, what are the 2 companies that make those OLED TVs? There's Samsung and there's LG, right? These are the guys that really run the market. You get one of those types of guys to take our polymers, everybody starts using it. And so you have to think about, you know, what happened to polymers in a different market. We're working with tier 1 companies. And it takes time when you work with a big company. There's many people to talk to, from the CEO all the way down to the engineer. It's not like dealing with a small company where there may be 1 or 2 people. In large multinationals, it's a complex business arrangement. And we're working with tier ones. We haven't named those tier ones, but that's one of the reasons why you haven't seen a second deal yet, but we're working on it. And so, this is a commercial plan. We have 3 of our materials licensed. We have a new one here that is great performance. And so we're looking to license that this year. And so our portfolio of materials are growing. Commercial activities and goals. Well, the goal is to select customers and work with them. Now, if you think about this for a second, we're a company of 33 people. And if 1, 2, 3, 4 multinationals all say we want to work with you, how do you support a company or 4 companies that big? It's very, very difficult. So you've got to pick your customers very carefully. They've got to be friendly customers. You have to be convinced they have the scale to get your polymers everywhere. And we're going through that process. So, we're in this process here of who do we really want to work with so we can ramp up in volume. And so, yes, we haven't given any names, but this is competitive. There's a lot of companies interested in our technology, and it's the TECOM's job and it's my job to really make sure the companies we work with very closely are going to do exactly what we want. And that's the process we're going through. So engagement with these big, a tier 1 is a multinational company. It's got facilities all around the world. So this is a slide that's brand new. Nobody's really seen this before. Maybe if you saw it on the website yesterday, you might have seen it. The commercial interest in our technology is growing. So I showed you these eye diagrams that had white spots. Well, these ones have black spots. It's the same difference. You just want to have open eyes to show that you have error-free transmission. And what these photographs show is that these are demonstrations of our modulators with the performance I showed in the previous graph. So people have come in and seen these demonstrations physically. And actually, we're going to show one of these demonstrations at a shareholder meeting in 4 or 5 weeks in Colorado because investors want to come see it. And so we are going to do that. So you can actually see the stuff working and see the performance, which is super exciting. Now, world-class results, there's no question about that. They fit really nicely into what the data center market is looking for today. The types of visitors that have seen these demonstrations are commercial tier 1 companies. Now, these are hyperscaler data center companies. These are telecom companies. These are optical system companies. They're transceiver corporations and companies. There's a word that you probably don't understand, OSAT. These are companies that do the packaging and the assembly. So there's companies that do that. There's CMs, contract manufacturers. These are companies that just do the manufacturing of product. In this case, optical product. And so we have visits from CMs, and we've had visits from silicon foundries that are really interested in using our technology. Now, I'm not going to name the companies, but you can see here, there's been over 20 of these this year, and this is just growing. This is growing very, very quickly. And so this is very exciting. We've also had research analysts. Now, we're a NASDAQ company, and as far as I'm aware, I don't think we are covered by any commercial research analyst, but we've had lots of visits. So, this is always a good sign. Visits from universities and visits from the defense industry. And so there's a lot of interest now in this technology. Compared to what I showed last year, the progress we have with the polymers has been incredible. So the other thing we did is we expanded our facilities. So if you do come to the shareholder meeting, you get to see our expanded facility, the new equipment. We basically doubled the size of the facility. There was actually a small school-type unit next door. They moved out, so we negotiated to get that space. We converted that space, and that doubled our facility to about 24,000 square feet, which is about 2,500 square meters. So within the new space, we can do a lot of production test, production reliability, a lot more chemistry, and we have a lot more equipment, and clearly a lot more offices for the people we've hired. And we're continuing to hire, probably not as much as in the last 12 months, but it's becoming a world-class team, and the world-class team is doing world-class work now, and you can see that through the performance of the polymers. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide because this is the management team and the board. I mean, one of the takeaways from this slide is, other than Ron, who's an accountant or a finance person, we have very deep technical experience, both myself, Fred, Suraj, and Craig. Lila is a person I used to work for when I was Intel Capital a long time ago. In fact, Atikum used to work for Lila as well, now we think about it. And she helped me do lots of deals at Intel Capital. She knows how to do deals. And so we have a team now that is really experienced both on the technical side of it as well as the deal side of it. Because, you know, the questions you're going to ask is, so when's the next deal come in, or how many deals you're going to make? Well, we need to have people on the board to really understand how to do these type of techie deals. And so we do have that. So the key takeaways: really large, exciting market that's growing even faster than we expected because of artificial intelligence. We have proprietary technology. We have lots of patents. Our commercialization has really improved in the last 12 months compared to last year. We have cash on our balance sheet. And with the leadership and the new technology platform, I'm actually more excited now than I ever have been in the last 7 years. Now, I know most of you are investors and you invest in the company, and it's sort of difficult for me to show that excitement. But this is a new technology platform, and it's not easy to get these platforms implemented. In fact, if we think about this for a second, we all have televisions. Actually, I don't, but you probably do, right? Think of the technologies in televisions over the last 100 years. 100 years ago, we had the cathode ray tube, you know, the big tube box, right? And then, I don't know, 20 years ago, we had the plasma TVs. They lasted a few years. And then we had the LCD TVs, and now we've got OLEDs. We've had only 4 technologies in televisions in 100 years. It's not that many. So if you think about the market we're going into, the internet, we've had lasers up until 20 years ago. You turn a laser on and off, you could send light out. But the lasers are not that fast. So what we do now is, oops, that doesn't work, is the laser sends the light. We put an optical switch in front that makes the ones and the zeros. So that's called a modulator. So we use modulators. They've all been semiconductor. Today, the incumbent technology is semiconductors. So these just switch the light. The light goes on, you got a 1, light goes off, you got a 0. Our polymer technology does this much, much faster. So I can't do it that fast. And it does it at very low voltage, which is lower power consumption. So we have a brand new technology platform that's changing the way the internet is going to work. And if you think about this, the internet's been around for around 30 years, I guess in the 1980s. It's only had one technology. So what we're saying is time to change the technology, just like in televisions. And we have the performance to do that. And I think at that point, I'll be open for questions.
Okay, Michael, thank you. Of course, we already know a lot about the story behind Lightwave Logic. My first investment was in 14, so 10 years ago. And I think a lot of people here are invested in Lightwave Logic. When I see in your slide 24 going into 25, I'm a bit like, okay, are the first commercial deals coming next year? No, you can't answer that. But I would like to know something more about the process of finding the right customers, because it's very... it's very strange to me. You are actually picking your own customers. I have the impression that a lot of people are interested, and you are in the position where you can say, well, I don't want that customer. So that's a really nice thing to hear. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Sure, absolutely. The best sale you can do is not to do any sale at all, but everybody comes to you because they know you have the answer. Right? So we're in a position now where we just demonstrated performance where everybody's coming to us. And that puts us in a really nice position where we can pick and choose. And so, you take a tier 1 customer that really is interested in our technology. They may not want their competitors to have access to the technology. So now it's a situation where we've had, I made a comment the other day in a video presentation. I said, you want to be pulled by your customer. You don't want to push because it's easier to be pulled. Well, we're being dragged along. And dragged means we've been pulled along and customers saying, well, we want it faster. What can you do to get us it faster? We really need this technology. That's being dragged along. And when you've got that situation, you have better choice of choosing who you want to work with. You don't have to work with everybody. Just pick the 1 or 2 or 3 big people and then just get going.
Do you get proposals for exclusivity? And if so, what would be your answer?
We expect to see that come up. Mm-hmm. And that's only natural. If you've got a technology where you are enabling your customers to be more competitive, of course they're going to say, well, what can we do so we're the only ones who get it? But that's not our business model. Our business model is to get everybody to use the polymers. So yes, we have to look at that, and we'll balance those opportunities. Mm-hmm. But certainly we've seen interest from that direction.
Okay. I'll leave the questions to the room now.
I would like to ask a question, if that's okay. So, Michael, at the one hand, you say we're very happy that they're lining up. Everyone is interested. They come to us. That's really wonderful. But at the same time, you're saying that, when working with these corporations, there's many people, there's a lot of processes and stuff like that. So that's also a part. And in Tracy, we have the same thing. When we're talking to corporations, it's, these are huge organizations, many steps involved. So could you give us an idea into some of the hurdles that you're facing when talking to these corporations? And where is the bottleneck? Is it at their end, that they're not making decisions fast enough? It has to go through due diligence? Or are you, on your end, not able to provide the necessary, whatever documents or reports or proofs that they would require?
I haven't seen any major bottlenecks. What I've seen is the people that typically come to a demonstration, like the slide I showed, this one here. This one. The people that come visit these demonstrations, it's not the CEOs. It's not the CTOs. It's the engineers. The engineers, just the optical engineers, the ones that have the PhDs in these companies. They're the ones that come and kick the tires and see if it's really working and really understand what they're looking at on the screen. So when these companies, they have a lot of technical engineers. They have a lot of technical management, senior management. And so what typically happens is that the engineers need to go see all this stuff first. They write their reports, that trickles up to the top. And so, yes, it does take time, but that process has already begun.
One more follow-up question, if you would allow me.
Of course.
In one more year since you last spoke, you have again advanced so much in your technology. You are demonstrating this with these new results, which is really wonderful. But how much are you investing? Okay, there's someone new on the board there also with the knowledge. That's really great to hear. But if you talk to the CEO and he makes it, or she, a strategic priority, then it won't have to trickle up, but it will be like, this, we need it right now. Is that an approach you're actually taking?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the international conference just 3 weeks ago, I was running the CEO panel for the largest optical component companies that we have in the industry. So yes, I do know the CEOs and I do interact with the CEOs. And so it's all a matter of getting the timing correct. Certainly, a lot of these CEOs see an opportunity, but also they also want to do their due diligence too. So it's a combination of both. But yes, we do have access both to the top as well as the bottom.
Okay, good questions. Thank you. More from the room. Dominique, wait for the micro, please.
Michael, the Lightwave Logic made an incredible progress. Congratulations with that. But the share price is dropping, and so what can be done to get price up? If you can't tell anything what you're doing, what can be done improving communication? I don't know. But
what's share price again? Can you explain it to me?
The share price.
I don't look at the share price. I mean, I run the company.
We do.
I know you do. Everybody here looks at the share price except me. I'm focusing on commercialization. And the only way I think about this is the more we move towards commercialization, the better it's going to be for everybody. So I have to focus on getting more commercial deals, more commercial traction. I can't predict the share price like anybody else. I certainly understand the sentiment of a lot of retail investors and investment banks. My job is to get more commercial traction. Then I think it will sort itself out. But that's my focus. If I do 110% in that focus, I think that's probably the best use of my time.
Yeah. Michael, I think I know the background of that question. I think a lot of people share it here. And that was an announcement made in December that commercial contracts were imminent, let's say. And then the market waited for that. And getting into April, or Q2, people realized, well, it's not coming anytime soon. And I think we have made the signal last year, and I want to repeat it. I think it would be good for the company to think about a communication strategy towards retail investors. I know it's not your core business, but there are a lot of people, especially in the lowlands, that have invested in Lightwave from the beginning.
No, I understand. The press release was not a mistake. We truly feel that we have, business deals that are progressing. I think the big difference that we didn't really explain in December is that we really are focused on the tier 1 big deals. And we're getting the attention because of our performance of the tier 1s, the big multinationals. And so, yes, I understand, what was said in December, and I understand that a lot of retail investors are expecting a deal a month or whatever the metric may be. We're focusing on getting our technology accepted and getting it ubiquitous. So, as I indicated, you look at some industries, there's not many companies that are there and to make the volume and the scale. And I think that's going to be similar to this type of market. We want to make sure we work with the right companies so our polymers go everywhere very quickly.
Okay, Peter?
Hi, Michael. So I understand you're going after the tier 1s. Is it correct to say that if you wouldn't do that, you've already had a deal with smaller ones? First question. And the second question is, you're financed till May next year, approximately. Now the deals aren't coming yet, and tier 1s is going take a lot of more time. Do you think you are going to get the finance again, or you can make it so you get cash flow positive?
I understand the question. So I haven't given any guidance on our first commercial deal on the size of the company, and I'm not going to. So it's a good attempt, but I'm not going to answer that. But certainly, it makes a lot of business sense to go after tier 1s. It just does. I mean, so you've got to do that. And secondly, when it comes to finances, yes, we have $31 million on the balance sheet. We also have a universal shelf. We're a NASDAQ company. I think what we said in the 10K was like $62 million. Mm-hmm. We have 2 financial tools. We have an ATM with Roth Investment Bank, and we have a buy-sell arrangement with Lincoln Park Capital. And so, yes, we can raise, we have access to $62 million as well, in addition to the 31 we have. We feel that we're in a reasonable position financially, very stable. We don't have any debts. And certainly, if there is a requirement to go raise money because of, interactions with tier ones, yes, we're engaged with a number of banks. And certainly that's something that, we're thinking about all the time.
One question from the live stream, coming from the live stream.
Tony is asking, your technology seems unique and promising, and there are advancing licensing discussions. Competition, however, is surely not sitting still. What do you identify as the main threats? Are there threats from an external environment or rather internally? For instance, not being able to deliver the ultimate demand with the little resources of the company.
So the question is about competition. And yes, the incumbent technologies are indium phosphide and their silicon and their lithium niobate. And yes, they're not standing still. And they're trying whatever they can to keep up. And they're struggling. And we've seen this, Atikum and I, just in 2 conferences in the last 3 weeks. They've increased the performance of their modulators over the last 3 or 4 years. But to do that, they're increasing the voltage, they're increasing the power consumption, and they're affecting their own reliability. So yes, if you've got an incumbent technology and you've got a new technology trying to put it out, yeah, the incumbent technology is going to do whatever it can to keep up. But we already know they can't keep up. Our technology is not only good for today, it's good for the next 10 years, and it has that performance headroom that these technologies just simply don't have. And so, yes, we are aware of that. We're also aware of a couple of new technologies, which I had on my slide real quick, if I can get there real fast. There we go. These 2 technologies. These are competitive technologies today. Barium titanate, thin film lithium niobate. Both of these are really difficult to put into a silicon foundry. The performance of thin film lithium niobate looks pretty good. When we was at the conference, we saw that. But the devices are 10, if not 100 times bigger than ours. So it's much more difficult to shoehorn those into the little transceiver boxes. So yes, it's got some good performance, but it also has some problems too. Same thing with barium titanate. It's a really tricky way to put that down on silicon that's very low yielding. And so yes, has some interesting properties, but we don't feel that they can really compete with us on one hand. On the other hand, if you think about, wow, why do we have all these competition here? It's because the market we're going after is now being accepted as exactly the right market to go after with our modulators. And other people are getting greedy. They're trying to jump in. And that's really what's happening right now. We are seeing some competition. People are jumping in, but we still feel we have the best technology.
Okay. More. Back there.
I was wondering, do you see any technical roadblocks ahead to mass produce the ice, so to speak, and to have them pluggable into data centers?
So the quick answer to your question is we haven't seen any major roadblocks ahead for us. What we've just demonstrated here is really been world class. We've been working with the foundries. We're on 200 millimeter wafers. We have a manufacturing facility for the chemistry. We've been working real hard to scale up the volume of the chromophores and the polymers that we produce there. So we haven't seen anything that will be what you call a natural obstacle. And so we're pretty confident about that.
Thank you.
Okay. 2 more questions, and then we're going to go.
2 to go.
2 to go.
Or rather, a short question. Can you push your voltage below 0.7 volt?
Yes. I showed in my optical fiber conference presentation 3 weeks ago, I showed results that showed a In technical terms, it's called a VPI of 0.8 volts. Drive voltage was about 0.5 volt. So yes, we can be quite a bit below 1 volt if we wish to be. And so that's really super exciting. Because anything below 1 volt...
The driver.
Exactly. I don't know who spoke, but yeah, you did.
You can eliminate the driver.
Exactly. And you can make it easier for the electronics. It's the electronics that actually consumes a lot of power. It's these IC and DSP chips that consumes lots of power. If you can make it easier for the architects with faster optics, because that's what we have, then you don't need to consume as much power in the electronics. It's that balance. And 0.5 volt or anything below 1 volt is exactly what they're looking for.
But have you been able to do that? Are you below 1 volt now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Those results are below 1 volt.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. Last question, and then there's one here. Oh, semi-last question.
When you expect the first money from the first contract?
The what?
The first money from the first contract.
So I'm not the finance guy, but so I have to be very careful how I answer this. But the first contract had an initiation fee, which was reported in one of the queues.
K41.
Right, and so every year there is a multi-year contract, and so depending on the customer and how many products they sell, I mean, we obviously get revenues from that, but if they don't sell what they suggest they sell, then they have to pay us penalties every year. And so, yeah, there's going to be something reported, but I don't know quite how they're going to report it because I'm not a finance guy.
Okay. And there was one question here, and then we're going to go to the last.
Tikkum, you got off easy here, yeah.
Well, actually, Tikkum, if you want to add something, you're always welcome. But let's ask the next question.
We spoke about polymers, television. 2 big suppliers to the whole market.
Keep your mic close.
We spoke about polymers in the television, like the OLEDs. 2 big suppliers. How much tier 1 customers do you need to get it ubiquity?
Can you please?
Yeah,
Yeah, the question was how many big tier 1 customers do you need to really own the marketplace? It's a tough question. I mean, there's a number of tier 1s that have really good market shares, some bigger than others. And so, yeah, we're going through that evaluation process internally. I don't think I mean, even if you look at the OLED market, it's not just, yes, we see LG televisions and we see Samsung televisions, but there's other Chinese companies that sell also lots of televisions. But I personally don't know how that market share is split up. But you want to make sure that the tier 1s you work with really allow you to scale in volume, and that's really the criteria. And I will finish with, if you want to make a 30-second update on the customers and what's happening, I think that'll be really useful.
Of course. Sorry.
Sure. So as Michael said, we've been talking to a lot of different customers, and the focus really is on tier 1s because that concentrates our efforts and makes it easier to get acceptance because the tier 1s deal with the big data center operators who, by the way, themselves have very strong photonic teams. It's not like the old days where they just focused on DevOps and software and all these things you read in the newspaper. They spend millions and millions of dollars making sure they understand the photonics and the optics. So that's an important thing. The other thing that wasn't really mentioned is you also need tier 1s that are flexible, right? One of the best business books ever written was Innovator's Dilemma. So if you're doing something, you tend to keep doing the same thing. So, for example, car manufacturers, the big ones specialize in engines with a lot of moving parts, right? So there's a pretty good debate that says, can those companies really go to electrical cars that don't have any moving parts? So it's very important that we work with the people who are flexible and want to take that competitive advantage that makes it happen. So, and that's why we're focused on those companies.
Thanks, Tikkum. Is there anybody who has a next question for Tikkum? I'm sorry, I didn't give you a lot of attention. We were so focused on what Michael said. Eenmaal, andermaal. Yes, so I think all questions are answered. Thank you, Tikkum, and thank you, Michael, for your presentation. And now we're off for the last speaker. Thank you.